The Buffalo Bills' loss to the New England Patriots wasn't just about turnovers and penalties, though those certainly played a part. What really jumps off the film is the missed opportunity the Bills had to exploit a glaring weakness in New England's defense. When you dive into the tape, especially the all-22 coaches film, it becomes clear this game was there for the taking, and Buffalo left a lot on the table, particularly in the passing game. Let's start with what the Bills did manage to do through the air. Josh Allen finished the game completing 22 of 31 passes for 253 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. His performance graded out as the 11th best among starting quarterbacks in expected points added per dropback during Week 5. Statistically, it wasn't a bad day for Allen, and there were some real bright spots. One of them was Dalton Kincaid. The connection between Allen and Kincaid continues to grow stronger, and in this game, it was on full display. Kincaid hauled in all 6 of his targets for over 100 yards, pushing his season totals to 20 catches for 287 yards and 3 touchdowns, with a perfect passer rating when targeted. Kincaid is emerging as a legitimate top-tier receiving threat among tight ends in the league, currently sitting at number 2 in receiving yards at the position. Even more impressive is the nature of his receptions. These aren't just checkdowns. His average depth of target is over 9 yards, which means Allen is pushing the ball downfield to him, and Kincaid is delivering. That's a huge plus for this offense. But here's where things get frustrating. As good as Kincaid has been, as sharp as Allen looked in stretches, the Bills completely whiffed on maximizing a clear matchup advantage that was screaming at them from the first snap. Coming into this matchup, it was obvious that New England's strength defensively was on the perimeter. Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis are no joke. That's one of the better cornerback duos in the entire NFL, and the Bills' receiving core, especially Keon Coleman, Josh Palmer, and Tyrell Shavers, were never going to be able to consistently separate against them. That was never the path to victory, and the coaching staff should have known that. In fact, throughout the week leading up to this game, the buzz around the matchup was focused on the middle of the field. New England's safeties and linebackers are weak in coverage, and that's exactly where the Bills had to attack if they wanted to move the ball efficiently. Tight ends, slot receivers, running backs. Those are the guys who needed to be involved. The data backs this up in a big way. Out of base defense, New England has been abysmal. Entering this game, they ranked near the bottom of the league in pass defense efficiency from base personnel. Opposing quarterbacks had shredded them. Geno Smith, Aaron Rodgers, Bryce Young, they all found success targeting those linebackers and safeties. And when the Bills managed to get New England into base looks during this game, they had success too. They faced base defense on 14 snaps. They ran the ball on 12 of them. The result? A measly 2.8 yards per carry. But on the 2 passing plays out of base, a 20-yard gain and a 23-yard gain. It was right there. The matchup was clear. The results spoke for themselves. And still, the Bills didn't lean into it. Instead, the Bills stuck with 11 personnel far too often. That's 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 back. Out of that grouping, Josh Allen was 15 of 24 for 163 yards and a touchdown. Not bad. But when the Bills use heavier personnel, 12, 13, or 21 groupings with multiple tight ends or running backs, Allen went 6 for 6 for 77 yards and picked up 5 first downs. That's incredible efficiency, and yet it only happened on a handful of snaps. This was not just a missed opportunity. It was a fundamental error in game planning and in-game adjustments. It's the kind of mistake that speaks to a lack of flexibility and situational awareness. The Patriots were daring the Bills to beat them through the air with tight ends and backs, and instead, Buffalo insisted on trying to win matchups on the outside that were clearly not in their favor. Kincaid had a great game, but he could have had more. The offense could have leaned more heavily on 2 tight end sets, created those middle field mismatches, and exploited New England's slow, undisciplined second-level defenders. This is a passing league, yes, but it's a matchup league too. You win by attacking weaknesses, not just by calling plays you like. The Bills had the personnel to dictate terms. They could have controlled the Patriots' defensive groupings and forced them into uncomfortable situations, but they didn't. And it's hard to ignore how costly that ended up being. Now, it's also fair to acknowledge that penalties and negative plays put the Bills behind the sticks too often. That's true, but the fact remains that they had chances to pull themselves out of it. And when they did, they still defaulted to predictable play calling. That predictability made things easier for a New England defense that was already holding the edge in coverage on the perimeter. When you look at the raw numbers, it becomes even more frustrating. Allen went 6 for 6 when passing out of big personnel groupings, 2 tight ends or multiple backs. That's perfect execution with a high level of success. But instead of dialing that up more frequently, the Bills leaned into their comfort zone and tried to force things against the teeth of New England's secondary. That's just not good situational football. And here's the kicker. If you're hitting 20 and 23-yard plays off those 2 passes against base defense, why not go back to it? Why not build off that? The lack of adjustment, the refusal to exploit the clear mismatch, it speaks volumes. This isn't about hindsight. This was obvious going in. Analysts saw it. Fans saw it. The numbers backed it up. And yet, Buffalo's game plan was stubborn and static. Part of this also comes down to a philosophical issue. The Bills often operate with a mentality of, we'll do what we do. We'll execute better than you can stop us. That approach works when you're more talented. It works when you're clicking. But when you're up against a defense that has a clear edge in one area and a glaring vulnerability in another, you need to be willing to adapt. Buffalo didn't. They stayed locked into their base tendencies and paid the price. And while we're at it, let's talk about Josh Allen's decision-making, because it played a role too. He made a lot of good throws. He extended plays. He turned some broken looks into positives. But there were also some moments, particularly in the red zone, where his decisions cost the team points. The interception into double coverage on 2nd and 13, that's a killer. You're in scoring range. If nothing's there, throw it away. Live for 3rd down. Take the field goal if you have to. Instead, you give the ball away and walk away with nothing. It's the kind of moment that shifts the entire complexion of a game. And then there was the end-of-game sequence that ended with a field goal instead of a touchdown. 1st and 10 from the 27, and the Bills call a screen to Khalil Shakir against a numbers disadvantage. 2 blockers versus 4 defenders. You cannot run that play. It's dead before the snap. Then, on 3rd down, Allen bails from a clean pocket for no reason, missing a wide-open Curtis Samuel who was streaking across the field on a deep over route. That's a touchdown. Instead, Allen escapes, throws to Shakir again, and the Bills settle for 3 instead of 7. These are the small margins that make the difference in close games. When Allen is on, he's as good as anyone in football. But in this game, even though he played better than maybe people realized watching live, those few critical decisions were costly. And they're magnified when the team around him isn't executing cleanly. 2 fumbles, 11 penalties, missed blocking assignments. It adds up, and that brings us back to the broader issue with this offense. It's not that they can't move the ball. They had over 360 total yards, moved the chains 25 times, and converted more than half of their 3rd down tries. But there's a lack of killer instinct when it matters most. A lack of strategic precision. They're not playing smart, matchup-driven football. And in today's NFL, that's not going to cut it, especially against well-coached defenses that know how to take away your strengths. When we turn to the rushing offense, things don't get much better. The box score might show 29 carries for 118 yards, but peel that back and you'll see a much different story. Take out Josh Allen's 9 scrambles for 53 yards, and suddenly, the Bills' traditional ground game looks flat and ineffective. They were below average in expected points added per rush and couldn't find any rhythm, especially when it came to James Cook, who never really got going. A major factor here was the shift in approach. Last week, Cook had his most productive game running behind and under center alignment. 100% of his carries came with Allen under center, and it made a huge difference in timing, spacing, and leverage. Against New England, that number dropped to just 66%. The Bills got away from what had just worked for them, and the results were predictable. Cook never found space, was bottled up repeatedly, and finished with his lowest yards after contact per attempt of the season. Structurally, the Patriots had a fantastic plan on defense. They committed to stopping the run in layers, playing downhill without giving up their integrity on the backside. What stood out most was how disciplined and coordinated their approach was. The defensive line fired out with intent, often resetting the line of scrimmage. The linebackers filled with purpose, and there was always a safety hanging in the second wave, ready to plug any cutback lanes or spill plays that James Cook likes to bounce outside. It was a textbook display of gap integrity and disciplined pursuit. The way New England schemed it up forced the Bills into uncomfortable scenarios. The Bills' offensive line prefers to work in tandem, get double teams at the point of attack, and climb to the second level. But the Patriots forced single blocks across the board. That completely disrupted Buffalo's rhythm and limited their ability to open up holes. Defensive tackles like Christian Barmore and Khyiris Tonga consistently won their individual matchups, which put pressure on the interior of the offensive line, especially at guard and center. Spencer Brown at right tackle didn't look quite right either. Whether it was physical or technical, something seemed off. Even when the Bills tried to mix it up with heavier personnel packages, they lacked the ability to keep defenses honest. Earlier, we talked about how successful they were throwing the ball out of 12 or 21 personnel. That success didn't carry over into the run game because when they did go heavy, they got predictable. Defenses sold out against the run, and Buffalo didn't do enough to punish them through the air from those looks. Again, this goes back to missed opportunities. The ability to be two-dimensional from those sets was there, but they didn't use it enough. Instead, they leaned on the run and became easy to defend. And then there's the role of the linebackers. New England got a boost from the return of Jahlani Tavai, a physical downhill presence who paired well with Robert Spillane. This was an area where the Patriots had been vulnerable in previous weeks with less consistent players like Jack Gibbons and Christian Ellis. But Tavai's return changed the complexion of their front seven. He's not a great coverage linebacker, but when the job is to fill gaps and stuff the run, he delivers. His presence helped shore up the middle of the field and made life even harder for Cook and the Bills' rushing attack. Despite all the struggles on the ground, the Bills still managed to rack up over 360 yards of total offense, moved the chains 25 times, and were 5 of 9 on third down. That's not a bad statistical output. But the problem is those numbers came with a high cost: penalties, turnovers, and poor situational execution. You cannot consistently win in the NFL while playing clean between the 20s and then folding in the red zone or stalling when it matters most. That's where smart teams separate themselves, and Buffalo fell short. One of the moments that really underscored this was late in the fourth quarter. After clawing back and putting themselves in position to take the lead, the Bills had 1st and 10 from the Patriots' 27-yard line. 3 plays later, they settled for a 45-yard field goal instead of punching it in for the go-ahead touchdown. On 1st down, they ran a screen to Khalil Shakir into a 4-over-2 coverage look, a numbers disadvantage. The play had no chance, and Shakir wisely let the ball fall incomplete. But the issue isn't just the result, it's the call. That play should have been checked out of before the snap. It was dead on arrival. Before we dive back in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest Buffalo Bills updates straight to your screen. And hey, don't hold back. Let us know your thoughts on today's news down in the comments. In what is already shaping up to be one of the most talked about storylines of the NFL season, Kellen Moore, head coach of the New Orleans Saints, has reportedly made some eyebrow-raising comments about the Buffalo Bills. Sources close to the situation suggest that Moore's words were far from complimentary, sparking a wave of speculation among fans and pundits alike. The Saints have been navigating a roller coaster season, but it seems the coach's offhand remarks could add an extra layer of drama to an already heated league. According to insiders, Moore did not mince words when discussing the Bills' recent performances, pointing to what he perceives as inconsistencies in their game plan and execution. While specifics remain under wraps, the general sentiment is that Moore believes Buffalo is overhyped and perhaps not as formidable as public perception suggests. There are teams that talk a big game, and then there are teams that actually back it up on the field, Moore allegedly remarked in a closed-door interview, which has now leaked to the press. Naturally, these comments have set off a firestorm on social media. Saints fans are divided, some praising Moore for his candor, others questioning the wisdom of publicly criticizing a team that could very well cross paths with New Orleans in the playoffs. Meanwhile, Bills supporters have taken the remarks as a personal challenge, and sports analysts are predicting that any matchup between the two teams this season could carry extra intensity. Rivalries in the NFL are nothing new, but when a head coach throws shade at a top-tier opponent, the stakes are bound to escalate. Interestingly, this is not the first time Moore has made headlines for his outspoken nature. Known for his analytical approach and strategic mind, he rarely ventures into public criticism of other teams. That he chose to target the Bills specifically has fueled speculation that there may be more than just professional rivalry at play. Could this be a psychological tactic ahead of a potential showdown, or is it a genuine expression of frustration at the hype surrounding Buffalo? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. The NFL rumor mill is buzzing, and every Saints-Bills encounter this season will now be watched with extra scrutiny. As the league continues its march toward playoff season, all eyes will undoubtedly be on Moore and the Saints and how, or if, the Bills respond to this public jab. One thing is for sure. The whispers have turned into full-blown chatter, and fans everywhere are ready for the drama to unfold. That's a wrap for now. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay on top of all things Buffalo Bills, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what you think in the comments. See you in the next update.